Hello, a long time. So I decided to restart my DVD recordings with chess base, and this time I want to make a big change. Before I was doing exclusively the opening repertoire DVDs. I made 25 of them. I think it's a good number to stop here. So from now on, I will talk more in general about chess. The series will be called Bologan Chess Academy. So we will start with the endgame, with very simple things, with pieces, with how they behave in the endgame, their power, their good parts, weak parts. And definitely in this introduction part, I will talk mostly about motivation, why to study endgames, why this is so important, especially nowadays. Nowadays, when we have so much information, we have access to practically unlimited access to all information in the world. The problem now is how to find time and find energy for assuming this and consuming this. So I would definitely tell you that the knowledge of the endgame it's very vital. This was well known always. And going back through just analyzing my career, I was preparing just the materials for the new book, autobiographical book, and I saw that many points, many half points were missed by me, by my opponents, just because sometimes we didn't know or didn't remember, or didn't apply the knowledge, some basic theoretical endgames. Sometimes when we're tired, when we're in time trouble, some skills were not present, or some concentration was low, and that led to mistakes. In order to, and this is really points, for example, if in the opening you are trying very hard to get 0.1 advantage with white, in endgame, our decisions sometimes cost us 2-3 pawns. It's really a completely different scale. The price of mistake in the endgame, it's huge. And especially in those like famous endgames, like when queen against rook, I don't know, rook against bishop, or something very elementary, like rook and bishop against rook, where just a simple, firm knowledge of the both theoretical part and practical part will just help you to be confident, and even in any condition, when you're tired, when you are in time trouble, you still can do it, because you don't need really to think. You just know it, or it's in your hand. So I will start with some, in this introduction part, with some ideas which I learned during my career. So one thing what impressed me a long time ago, when I was working with Mark Dvoretsky, and he told me the story about Victor Korchnoi, this legendary player who I had an honor to play 4 times in the classical games with him and communicate a little bit as well. So in his career, in order to improve, he found that his knowledge is not good enough, especially in the rook endgames. So what he did, he spent a couple of months just studying these rook endgames, and after that he convincingly won the Soviet championship, which was very strong at that time in the 1960s. So from this point of view, that work definitely helped. Normally, traditional approach in the modern chess players is that they mostly, I myself, we spend like 90% or maybe sometimes 100% of our time on openings, which is completely wrong. And this DVD is exactly about that. We should spend more time on studying the middle game, the end games, of course, as well. So here is one example of my game already from the real practice. That's why the DVD is called Practical Endgames, with Victor Korchnoi himself. It was played in the 4NCL, and there was a special anecdote about this game with funny and typical comment by Viktor Lvovich at the end of the game. Why didn't you resign before? Even I was struggling till the end, and there was fight. So that's typical Victor. But let's see what happened in the game. So you will see a series of mistakes. Again, we are talking about players. Like even I just mentioned that Rook endgame, he studied it, he knew it, but this always need to refresh and reskill. Every knowledge you need to refresh. You cannot just say that I studied this 20 years ago and now I'm fine. I don't have to do it anymore. Anyway, you have to refresh your skills, your knowledge, your theory, your memory. So here we have Victor Lvovich playing against me. And he played here f4. Actually, this move, it's very nice move. The idea is to block the pawns, the f4, e3 pawns, but it creates a counterplay for me. I also was in time trouble at that moment, so I didn't smell the moment where how to make the draw here. I want to stress you that, of course, we are talking about theoretical positions in endgames, about skills, but also it's the most important skill maybe in the endgames, it's just a simple direct calculation. And of course it's easier to make a calculation, especially when you have less pieces on the board, so then you can, especially in the pawn endgames, you just have to go one. He is going here, I'm going here, so then it's easier to count the tempos. But even in the rook endgames, also the calculation is very important. And here the right move, of course, would be just to take on f3. Just to take on f3, and after rook f1, activating the king. We will talk a lot in this DVD about activation of the pieces. Rook f3, king e4, rook f1, and now rook c8 check. It's very important to use the moment that the king opposition, so the king cannot advance after the check, to put the king on b4, which is misplaced. It's in the same file with the pawn, and to try to reduce the material to the minimum and to leave only the b pawn alive. So after attacking rook h8, of course he has to try to advance, but after rook h3, b7, rook h8, I am in time to make a draw. So that would be the right decision. I played here rook c8 check, which somehow led to lose of a pawn of a game, and also it was very important from match point of view. The score was 3.5 to 3.5, and Victor Lvovich brought the victory to his team. Well, the rest of the game, it's already much more trivial. So he played king d5, rook c2, b6, rook d2. But you can understand the difference between two lines already, and we will talk again a lot about this DVD, the activity of the king. We are taught from the very beginning that when we are very small, that the king in the endgame should be very active. So you see the white king and the black king. This difference tells you everything. So king c6, rook c2 check, king d7, rook d2, king c7, and this checks doesn't help me at all, because after king b8, e3, h4, actually this maybe somehow escaped from my attention, that he can activate this pawn. It looked like he was quite far from queening, but here we see that he's doing fine. And another attempt to take the pawn. Even e2 was analyzed by our colleagues, John Spinell and John Short, but still didn't, and Alex Baburin, but it was still not enough to make a draw. So rook c4 here, b7, rook takes f4, and h5. So that's how the game continued, and maybe Victor Lvovich was right. Maybe I should resign before, but I don't advise you. I'm just coming from a Bundesliga game where I played horribly with white, and I should really resign in any moment. I could just simply resign, but you never know. So just before getting mate in one, my opponent, he just gave me a rook with a check. So I took the rook with a check. That was good enough to make a draw. So you better I kind of, this fighting spirit should be there, and you never know what happens. I mean, of course, in some very obvious positions you resign, but this endgame, it didn't look so obvious to me, because actually Korchnoi played very well this part, and quite convincingly he showed me that this pawn on h pawn, this kicker, is fast enough to create the queening theme. So here, exactly tempo by tempo, after h7, I already have to resign. And now the king goes to the queen part, to the queen side, and the promotion of the pawn, it's inevitable. So this kind of inspired me myself to work on the endgames, this situation, this story of Korchnoi, how it helped him. So I did spend some time with Mark Dvoretsky to study the endgames. Another example, historical example, and maybe it's a legend, maybe it's a city legend of New York. So it says that at some point, Fisher, Robert James Fisher, he was very disappointed with his misses in the endgames. So what he did, he just took whatever books were available at that time on endgames, and he closed himself in the hotel room in Brooklyn, and he spent like up to 3 months just maybe, I don't know, he spent time for food, for eating, but he really studied it very seriously, and everybody knows his technique and how strong he was in the endgames. But that's it's not as a given, you know. Even geniuses like Fischer, like Korchnoi, they still consider important to spend a lot of time in the endgames, on theory, on practical, on studying books, on going into very deep understanding of specific difficult endgames. So he did it, and the results were overwhelming. He was really very strong and the best in his times. My personal story with him, it's again, at the end of his life, his unfortunately short life, because he could live much longer if he would use the services of the doctors of official medicine, which he always rejected. Unfortunately, that happened, but in the last few years of his life, we were playing by internet with him, and I can tell you that he was, by the way, beating me, because he preferred the time control 5 without increment, 5 minutes per game, a blitz, and his technique in the end game was excellent. Just simply, this you can see that he really knew what to do in the end games. So another story, which just to back up my my motivational introduction, is connected with another legendary top grandmaster, Veselin Topalov. He came to, when I was living in Moscow, during my PhD studies in Moscow in 1995. I was living, my apartment, my flat was just next to Dvoretsky, so he came to Dvoretsky to study endgames on purpose. He had a very good career before that, but then at some moment he won many opens, but he decided to get more serious stuff, some more classical education, and he came to Dvoretsky for 11 days to make kind of a training camp. He was staying at my apartment, and of course he was working like 24 hours. And for him, like relaxing or resting, it was he was taking I had this series of Averbach, these 5 books on endgames. He was like enjoying the rest time reading those books. So he was fully in the endgames, and it really helped him. His career went up after that, and he already all his active career he was always on the top. And talking about Veselin Topalov, we talk about some active player who likes dynamic chess, who likes attacking, very aggressive, but still he understood that endgames is very important for him, and it's not that boring as we might see. For example, here we have an example of how he outplayed another very strong player. Actually, Mikhail Krasinkov. He understands endgames quite well, but in this position specifically, we see that he is pawn down on the same side, and you can opt that it's limited material and there could be a draw, but we can see that Veselin quite convincingly outplayed his opponent after g3, king g7. So first, of course, you bring the king. It's important that there is no comfortable exchange of any piece here. So the rook and bishop will stay till the end of the game. This is very important because more simplifications, easier for white to defend. So here, not much to be done. And also important point that even pawn cannot be exchanged because the bishop controls the h3 as well. So rook f2, king g5, rook b2, rook c5. Here we will see that this position will be about Zugzwang. And Zugzwang, this will be one of the key motives in the endgames. Zugzwang is a very, very important motive in the endgames. Practically, of course, again, when we are little, we always talk about the most famous Zugzwang, this opposition, when you have to cede the way for the king. So you have to get the king to, you have to give the squares. And in this position, Veselin managed to find some unusual Zugzwang, and this is more precious because typical Zugzwang, it's okay, but thanks to deep calculation, using the method of elimination, we can reach the situation when opponent is simply out of moves. So now, for the moment, what he's doing is taking the maximum space advantage, and definitely now he's preparing the killing move f4. But before doing that, he needs to respect two conditions. One, that the king will be not checked after king gets to f4, and second, that the rook should be on c1. So that's what he does. He puts the rook on c1 first. Rook d2, bishop a6. We can see here that the bishop cannot move because of rook f1 check, so he has to still hold it. Attack, bishop d3, rook d2, bishop c4. This is exactly the Zugzwang situation. Because if the rook leaves the second rank, then we can give check. If the bishop leaves the f1 square, we also have a very strong check. And if the rook goes to b2, then there will be no anymore the check on d4. So practically out of nothing, with very good and very convincing strong play, Veselin managed to create this Zugzwang. And I want to say that he took his time to improve to the maximum the position. This is also one very good skill and approach in general endgames. So he improved, and now black already has put this Zugzwang on place. So after rook b2, f4, practically Mikhail had to resign because you see he doesn't have any checks. Even after gf4, king f4, no check, and g3 is coming as checkmate. It's very nice, brilliant actually example of how the serious work of an endgame helped Veselin Topalov to become a top level player. To conclude with this topic, I must say that even Garry Kasparov, when he was already achieved everything in his life, and he was already, I think at that time he was actually 40, so he was in the peak of his career. When he learned that Mark Dvoretsky published a book on endgame, he was very interested, very curious on that, and I had only a copy of, actually the first, it was in German language. So even that he asked me to bring. Of course, Mark gave me this copy for Garry Kasparov, and he was very eager to study, to learn, and to go through this book, and he liked it a lot. So I want to say that it's never late. Even you are in the end of your career, even you are in the middle, or of course in the beginning, it's always good to go through the DVD, the one DVD which I'll prepare now, of course, but I mean through the books. I will give you at the end of the DVD a list of my books which I consider as important and interesting to learn. And working on endgame will bring you points, will bring you confidence, and will also bring you some pleasure, because there are many nice ideas. We just saw a few examples and how you can outplay your opponent in the end game. So let's do it. Let's go through this many interesting ideas, practical ideas, which will help you to improve your chess. Thank you.